Hi guys, how is everybody? So I was sitting here like, when you click go live in StreamYard, it takes like, I don't know, it takes a couple seconds for it actually to give you the red light that it goes live. So I'm sitting here like, and then I realized I never actually clicked the button. So I just wasted like 45 seconds there wondering if my internet was screwing up. But hey guys, we are here and we are live. What we're looking at today is a pretrial conference. Now, we're supposed to have already gone through final pleas, but again, it's always possible that district attorney could offer and the relevant defendant, right? We've got 3 left. Maybe one of them is willing to take a plea. So something like that could happen. I don't have there's nothing that's been said that's being speculated about, but it is a possibility. Other than that, they're trying to tie up any loose ends to make sure, hey, we want to go to trial by a certain date. Are we good to go on that? Is there anything left unresolved that would prevent us from starting trial on the given date? I think they were shooting to start in before the end of February, like the final weeks of February. And Judge Whitaker had a personal emergency. Rumor is, what I've heard is that she had a death in the family. But also with Whitaker, I feel like some people, they could have a lot going on in their own lives, but they want to stay on track anyway. So I'm not sure if that will impede the trial start time. Really just working out any calendar conflicts, getting things in a row, and getting it going. The remaining defendants that we have put together this, let's see, 11 alive, put together a quick list, pulled it from the current indictment. But they have so many like video ads, I just threw it together in a Google Doc. So we've got Demise McMullen. He's facing violation of RICO and murder count 2. This is again the Donovan Thomas murder. We've got, let me make it bigger, Damekion Garlington. I think that's a name that nobody is unfamiliar with at this point if you've watched like a single day of the first YSL trial. He's got violation of RICO. He's got attempted murder. So this is going to the Chamel Drinks incident. Participation in criminal street gang activity for counts 42 and 43. Murder, count 49. Participation in criminal street gang activity, count 50. Participation in criminal street gang activity again, count 51. And possession of firearm during commission of a felony. Now, Eppinger has the most quantitatively here. What most of us are familiar with are the attempted shooting on Officer Rogers, but he's also wanted for an attempted robbery, and we got some more context on that incident that he was wanted for at the time that Officer Rogers stopped and ran up on him and just said, "Get down," but didn't really identify himself. That all seems a little bit confusing because the state seemed to have a different story of how that went down at first until those videos were played in trial 1. But we did get some details on this armed robbery by reading some of the motions Christian Eppinger filed for to suppress witness identification information. So if you want to hear that, we just did the last streams we talked about it, but we also clipped it. So you can watch those really quickly. If you go back on this channel, it was like the most recent thing clipped. But he's got, of course, RICO. Nobody's surprised. He's got this armed robbery, which was a few months before this incident with Officer Rogers. Hijacking a motor vehicle in the first degree, possession of a firearm by first offender probationer, theft by taking, attempted murder, and that's because there was more than one officer there. Possession of firearm by first offender probationer, possession of firearm by first offender probationer, possession of firearm during commission of a felony, possession of firearm during commission of a felony, 2 counts of participation in criminal street gang activity, conspiracy to commit a crime, and participation in criminal street gang activity. So that's the wrap up of the charges remaining for the 3 remaining co-defendants on this YSL case. So shout out to Classy Beats over here, down here in the Law and Crime chat. But yeah, that's what we're looking at. So also, I don't see, let me scroll through the chat. I was looking for kernel audits. Don't see kernel audits yet, but on the last stream, they recommended Enhancer for YouTube. So I think that'll be helpful if we're having issues with the court microphone. It's not loud. It seems like it's working. I just want to make sure when we're live, it transmits through you guys. Survivor Speak said she tested it out and that it seems to work fine. So it looks like we have an actual extension that will carry a volume booster through to you guys. So we'll test that out today. Very excited about that. So if you guys see Kurnaw audits in the chat, if they join us at all, make sure thumbs up for them. And then what else do we got? If you guys missed it, right? I tried to post some community posts about Tinquarius Mender. We watched one of his 2 plea hearings earlier this week on the 13th. Now, the cameras were only there for case 1 because the Rule 22 only applied to that case. But he was charged in a separate indictment, also a RICO case, and that plea hearing was right after, and they cut the camera feed. So we were a bit confused. We didn't know what happened with count 1 in the YSL case. We know he took a plea, but we didn't hear anything about count 1. For the YSL case, confirmation that the state dismissed count 1 for Tinquarius Mender, but he did plead guilty to 2 counts of participation in criminal street gang, or no, contraband. He pled guilty to 2 contraband charges and then took an Alford plea on 1 count of participation in criminal street gang activity, right? So they end up dismissing RICO and he pleads Alford to the street crime charge. So not that RICO win for the state for Tinquarius Mender. But what happened after the cameras were shut off, Sylvia was in the courtroom, she talked about it, and then AGC also did an article on it. However, he pled in this second case, this separate case. He's got like 8-year, I think a 10-year sentence, but he served like 4.5. So he's still got time to serve in custody. So if it wasn't for this other case, he would have been out on probation with his resolution of the YSL case, but he's got something else going on. So he's not actually going to be out. So there's that. There is that. And since this hasn't started, you know, sometimes, and I hate when I'm watching like other people's lives, I'm waiting for them to start and then they actually start, but my YouTube window doesn't go. So you might see me refreshing this just to check, but it looks like they actually have not gone live yet. So let's look on Twitter. Let's see if Kathy has an update. Let's see. Kathy. Nope, no updates. No updates. So we'll see. We'll keep this up and we'll keep refreshing periodically. But in the meantime, top of the morning here to Cutthroat Radio Podcast. Good to see you. Carolyn Cross says good morning. SSG Nunu says good morning, Cat Chat and the mods. I know, it's so weird. Say I missed all my slimes. It is very weird. It is a whole change of routine. Corey says good morning. Deborah J says, hey everyone. STS with sysadmin Simon here showing up in the profile picture for a rare photo opportunity, gifting 5 memberships. Super nice of you. So big thank you there. We'll get a banner going once we get the camera feed going, and STS will be our first slime sponsor of the day. Sunshine says good morning. Sheriff Chuck says good morning, KNW and fellow slime. Here's to another year of togetherness. And I have an idea of a way we could do fun trial watches. I'll talk about that after we say hey to everybody. Sean Z, good morning. SDS says, here is sysadmin Simon, post cone of shame. So yeah, always I swear, I always feel so bad laughing at an animal with a cone of shame because I always wonder, like, what do they think is going on? But it's still funny to me. I feel bad laughing when I see a dog or cat with the cone, but it's just so funny to me. But STS is giving us the update here that sysadmin Simon no longer has to wear one of those. Patrick H23 says, hola. That's like one of the only Spanish words I know. Amanda Robinson says, hi, everyone. Let's see. STS, shout out from Jason Hodges here. Corey says, I wonder if Woody would be called back. If so, it would be comedy. I don't know. Quick vote, informal vote in the chat. Like, right, the assumption is that this is going to go to trial, right? This wouldn't happen. So forget any decision on maybe we don't go to trial, maybe all 3 take pleas. Let's assume that today we find out we're going to go to trial for sure. Put a 1 in the chat if you think the state is going to call Woody back. Put a 2 in the chat if you think we won't see Woody. Just a casual vote. And yes, I think it would be comedy. It's what a tight spot to have to navigate through, because there really isn't an issue with Woody that there isn't something contradictory that you could bring up. And it's not just contradictory from a prior out-of-court statement. There's stuff that would be contradictory from stuff that was on the record, under oath. So, Hope says, hey, Cat and chat. Hey to Hope. Factual Lie, good to see you. She's greeting all the co-conspirators. Good morning, Angela Davis. Yes, Sunshine says, I love the pic they use of Judge Whitaker. It's like, really? Viral Me Crazy says, Cat. Peter Steele says, good morning, Cat and chat. Great last name. Joni says, yay, Cat, glad to see you. Happy Friday. Yes, it is Friday, you guys. It is Friday. Good morning to Jess. TGQ. TGQ also with the reminder to hit that like button. Jim M says, good morning, gang. Let's see, Connie G. Hey, that guy Nick. Hey, Shamina. Hey, Danny. You guys are rolling in here this morning. I'm glad to see you guys following along. Shout out to Big Baby Jean. Hey to Andre. Andre Cook says, beautiful morning. Guys, it's in the 50s here in Florida, which is a little cold for us. They say that when you move down to Florida, your blood thins. And I was like, what? No way. And I don't know, back in New York, 55, we'd put on like short sleeve shirts. We'd be like, oh my God, it's warm. But when it's 55 here, I'm like, oh, I need a sweater. I need a hoodie. So maybe what they say is true. We're going to refresh this. Nope, no start yet. No start. Yeah, no update over from Kathy over on X. So let's see. Yeah, so we'll just keep refreshing. Good morning here to Love Me Virgo. Shout out to the Virgos. Hey to Sleepy. Love Me Virgo also says Grand Rising, chat and cat. Let's see. Get Love, Give Love says Happy New Year to you and your family, but I thought this case was done. Nope, we've got the 3 remaining co-defendants. So, and in my titles, I'll call it like YSL 2, right? So, it's like focused on, these 3 co-defendants. It's not a rewind. It's not a rewatch. We'll use YSL 2. The Nutty Brunette says, been a while since I've come to the chat. So just wanted to say hi, Cat and chat. Good to see you, Nutty Brunette. I have not heard that Yak has been released. I think we're still waiting. He's got a hearing coming up in, oh God, I'm going to forget the date. It was February, right? I want to say like February 25th. I want to say February 25th, but I could be wrong on the date. Could be wrong. So I'll look for an assist from the chat there if anybody knows offhand. If not, I can go back and look. Mo Mac, makeup artist. Love our makeup artist here. Hey, Cat. Hey, right back. Hey to Red Bunny, OG. And then speaking of OG Kathy says, good morning, Cat and chat. Also saying hi to Cha. So if Cha is here, shout out to Cha Diggy. Christine, thanks for becoming green. Also, I think, is it your birthday today? I saw you say it somewhere. So guys, if we could get some happy birthdays to Christine in the chat. That's your free opportunity to use all caps. There you go. Happy birthday, Christine. I hope you have a good one. Hey to Patrick. And there we go. There's the message here. Let's see. Yeah, look, we got a lot of love before I even had to say it. Love that. You guys are on it. Let's see. Trey Keisha is in the bushes working and listening. Good morning to 773 Pisces. We love our Pisces too. Full drinking and half thinking is dropping bombs in the chat, gifting 5. So we've got 2 slime sponsors today. And every time I think, slime from the YSL trial, but I always think of Nickelodeon and the slime machines. And I know they still do that theme nowadays, but it's not quite as, I don't know. It's like what Nickelodeon used to do with slime was like a PG vanilla, like absolutely kid-friendly vibe of what adults used to do with like a spring break or Mardi Gras, right? You just had outdoors, you had a stage with a giant slime machine, you had a bunch of kids in the audience all live jumping up and down, almost like a concert. It used to be a whole time. And they don't really quite do it like that anymore. But I always love to think of, when I think of slime, I think of Nickelodeon slime. And the show Figure It Out. Do you guys remember Figure It Out with Billy the Answerhead? And I forget the lady's last name, but Summer something was the host. But big thank you here to Full Drinking, Half Thinking. Good to see you. Another awesome content creator. And me and FFS are supposed to come over there and hang out one of these days when I have some control over my life. I've been working with a client. They've got a lot going on. And I'm hoping that slows down, because it's getting to be a lot. So right there in the chat, dropped a link there to Full Drinking, Half Thinking. Come hang out with us. Yeah, and everyone, mostly one. So looking at these poll responses here for Woody being called back. Lots of ones, then we get a wave of twos, and it's always funny how that works, right? You know, human nature. The ones either responded really quickly, coincidentally, or, you know, sometimes you get some people saying twos, or you think about it and you go, well, maybe not. So twos again are not calling Woody back. We've got Lauren with the one snuck in here, and then we're back to lots of twos. Mimi says two, 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 two. Then we've got some ones. We go back to a good mix. And Tanya says 3. So maybe that's an I don't know. Or maybe that's we'll call him. Or maybe that was a typo, because then she says 2 down here. Skillet Pan says 1 because the state's that dumb. JC from the D just says, please bring Woody back. I'm going to vote 1. And I think in a way, I think someone had said it. Quindarius Zachary as well. Princess Waku, wouldn't they have to bring Woody and QZ back? And what would be really interesting is Woody and Quindarius Zachary, they're supposed to have a close relationship, at least at certain points in time. I don't know about all the time. I don't know about present day. But especially Quindarius Zachary, if we've got Damekion Garlington, Lil D, still on trial, one of our main witnesses would be QZ. So, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to get around that. Especially the defense could decide, hey, we want to call them. We want to call them. Doug, I'm not sure about some pleas, but that would explain why they're not, just refreshing to make sure here. That could explain a slow start. And again, you know, with Judge Whitaker, Whitaker likes to start on time. So it's not like, oh, they're starting late. Just like every time with Glanville. Sometimes it is a little bit of an eyebrow raiser when Whitaker, her court starts late. So. And then, okay, well, actually CMT is saying Sylvia live with the T. So maybe that's what we're getting here. So, and then Eppinger might. So that's coming over from Sylvia, I'm assuming, you guys. Jason, thank you for relaying that. And again, I see CMT over here in the Law and Crime chat. So, yeah, I'm going to assume that's coming from Sylvia. So thank you for relaying that, Jason. Oh my god, I love the chat. Black Butterfly, I love this so much. Let me close this other YouTube window I have open. It's making me jump around on the screen. This is about this face. Black Butterfly says, that's when Whitaker called Love disorganized. I remember it like yesterday. I can picture that. So I don't remember the exact moment, but you're saying it and I can exactly picture this. This is hilarious that you remember this. I love this. Oh my gosh. Oh, what a good throwback there. Thank you so much, Black Butterfly. Papa John says, morning cat chat and mods. I feel like family here. We've got a ton. This must have been a few minutes ago when I mentioned Christine. We're catching up. So thank you for all the birthday wishes to Miss Christine. We're hoping she has a good one. We've got a ton flowing in here. So love that, love that. Doug is in court today, so hopefully everything is peaceful and ordinary business. Happy birthday again from TGQ to Christine. Love to see all the cake emojis. Knock Andrew isn't even 30 yet, and he's saying that he's old. Stop it. Plans and Pens is in the bushes today. And that's the other thing. We'll go through, and maybe we could do it now instead of later. But I did go through and pull out the suggested Hedgehog names, and I'm thinking of it because one of the suggestions is Bush. So, because you know, hedgehogs do kind of like, they're kind of bushy. Someone suggested Bush. I think Viverito might have been on their mind. We could go through those names if there's going to be a bit of a delay here. Tons of happy birthday wishes. Love to see it. Let us know if you have any plans for your birthday, or like, what kind of cake? Are you doing cake? Here Comes Drama says, love the yellow hat. Yeah, I've got a little bit of yellow on this hoodie, so, you know, gotta pair it together. Hey to Asia. Let's see. Yes, LTO says, Legends of the Hidden Temple. Heck yeah. I mean, they used to like really build out these like studio game show mini arenas for these shows. Like, Legend of the Hidden Temple was basically like the original Ninja Warrior. So, for kids. But yeah, just like really cool stuff. Sunshine says, I think Woody would be more serious with Abbatte. I would kind of like to see if there would be like a contrast, at least a significant contrast, based on who was questioning him. And again, you know, Hilton led the questioning with Woody. I think Woody at least had some respect for Hilton, but we know that Woody didn't want to talk to Adrian Love, right? We had the whole story spill out that Woody was fine saying it. Love was basically on her knees begging me to talk to her. You know? So, based on that, I think Woody could talk differently to different people if he felt like he wanted to. And maybe that would be the case with Abbatte. Yeah, that guy Nick, hello, where's it going? Says this is only supposed to take 90 days. We shall see on that, LOL. And again, I don't think that this expeditious, I don't even think it saying they're going to do it expeditiously is the right term. I think in proportion, it's disproportionate how long the first trial was. It shouldn't have been that long, right? So I don't think 90 days is short for the sake of being short. I think that's maybe in a way kind of generous time estimate. You know, we're down to 3 defendants. We had 90 days when there was either 5 or 6 defendants left, right? So we've whittled some out, which means we've whittled out some incidents, right? Because the remaining co-defendants, they were all charged with different incidents, plus their count 1 tying them all together. So you whittle out 2 defendants. It's not like, well, we were only going to talk about 2 incidents, but we had to talk about 5 people's roles in them, but we still got to talk about the same 2 incidents. No, we've cut out some incidents entirely by the recent pleas. So, but yeah, we'll have to see. I think it'd be stupid if the state took more than 90 days. Let's see. If Eppinger's taking a plea, they won't need Woody, but remember, we still have Demise McMullen, and, you know, there's the Donovan Thomas murder stuff with Demise McMullen. So, you know, Woody, for better or for worse, was like the centerpiece of the Donovan Thomas investigation. So, a big thank you here from Isabella to STS for the gifted sub. Belvex, good to see you. Miss AB, good to see you. We missed you on when we got together earlier this week going live. We all hope you are doing well. I'm doing very well. So, but very good to see you live here with us today. All right, so Fox 5 is live. We can go over there. Let's see. All right, so they are live and Law and Crime isn't, so that's interesting. They've been live for, and Whitaker's yelling right now. We'll get caught up. I went back to before she talks. We'll get caught up. Let's see. There's no volume on this feed yet. Let me make sure I've got this boost on for you guys. We'll see if it's loud enough. So thank you for this, Michelle. Let's get into it. Thank you guys for, okay, we'll fast forward. They're not showing anything.
He said he needed a little more time, and then it came through.
All right, this is still really quiet, so let's boost this higher. I have a settings thing. You guys tell me when it's good. Where are extension options? It's currently boosted 4 levels. I'm going to boost it 6. So let's see.
By the end of that point, I understand your Honor's position that more communication would have been ideal. I could approach and tell you some other factors, but that doesn't quite matter for our purposes here today. Ultimately, Judge, once we got it, the priority was to jump into it just to make sure of what there was and to start assessing that and sort out what belonged to Mr. Garlington.
What do you, at this stage, having had 5 days to assess the narrowed evidence, suspect that your motions in limine are going to entail?
Judge, I just wanted to, there are several, at least I think several videos, including Mr. Garlington, that look like YouTube videos of some form. I just want to review them in light of recent case law regarding presentation of lyrics and things like that to see if that was, if it comports or not. That would be the biggest issue.
All right, we're going to switch to 11 Alive. The booster is barely raising the volume because it's so quiet here. So sorry about the switches. 11 Alive absolutely has better volume. So we'll switch back over to 11 Alive. Neither of these have captions, so sorry about that. No captions for now. Let's see. It's going to be significantly louder. We'll go to half.
And the interpreters want to.
Why is 11 Alive playing music?
In the morning or to.
For hearing you gave.
All right, so this stream, 11 Alive will like strike a stream if this music picks up. So if the stream goes down, we'll figure it out.
The day before, and the attorneys are supposed to provide the close. If the family members want to provide the close to the attorneys, that's great, but they should not be going directly from the family members to the sheriff's office. And it should not be in the morning. If it's in the morning, it's just not going to happen because we need to be getting court started on time, okay? Y'all also need to be here on time. And on time really kind of means early because there's always going to be something that comes up. And that way, even when it comes up, y'all can deal with it and we can start on time. All right. When we were here in December, I asked that y'all all have any motion.
All right, so can you really hear it better with them playing the music over it? Because I say, can you hear this? I think we should watch this until the music ends.
Okay. Anybody else? No motions in limine for anybody else. All right. I want, I need you to speak into the mic, identify yourself and your party.
Attorney Eric Johnson for Mr. Christian Eppinger, Your
All
Honor.
right.
I would just ask to join in the co-counsel's argument in this particular matter as it relates to the discovery in this case and be allowed to, till Monday, to file them as well.
What motions are you anticipating filing?
At the present time, Your Honor.
Pick up your mic and speak into it.
At the present time, Your Honor.
Thank you. That is so much better.
Thank you. I can't say at the present time. I've not finished the recitation of we're going through all of the condensed version of the evidence, but I would just ask for leave till
Okay,
Monday.
y'all realize the condensed version of the evidence is less evidence than it was before. You already should know the entire universe of the evidence and know, okay, if this evidence is still going to be presented, here is the motion in limine that I need to file to address it.
Well,
so you shouldn't still need, you should be able to tell me, it's going to be these three, or this one, or maybe it won't be any because that evidence isn't here yet. You shouldn't just now be like, I think I need to figure out what to do with this evidence.
No, I'm not saying that I need to figure out what to do with the evidence, Your Honor. However, in order to provide proper representation for my client, I have to go through all of the additional evidence to make sure that it's the same as the first evidence, to make sure that there's nothing been included that was not in the first part of the evidence.
Let's pause for a minute. Is there any new evidence that wasn't included in the last drop of evidence?
No, Your Honor.
There's not any. You don't need to worry about that.
Thank you.
And Mr. Dart.
Yes, Your Honor. I just wanted to draw the court's attention. I would like to join in the defense request as well for time to file a motion in limine. I did see those same YouTube videos, Your Honor. I have gone through some of them. They do, for the most part, so far what I've seen look like just music videos, rap lyrics, things like that. But Your Honor, because it's, by my count, I counted just in stuff just related to my client, 250 plus social media posts, and I was still counting, but 118 plus videos that all could or somehow potentially relate to my client with respect to this argument. So, Your Honor, I would just ask for time to get through all of those. I do also, Your Honor, submitted a motion.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too.
Correct.
Okay, so it does not need to be ex parte, and you want funds for an investigator and a gang expert. And
This is a public defender.
Is what, and I know that you were appointed July 19th of 2024, but July 19th of 2024 was 6 months ago at this time. I told you in December that we were looking at a late February trial start, and that you had and would have more than enough time to get your case ready. This should not be the day that you are for the first time saying, oh, you know what, I think I might want some assistance. Let's review, and y'all have all been before Judge Dempsey for the last 8, 10, 12 months on this case,
Your Honor,
except for you, who started in July, 6 months for you. And you should have, as soon as you got into the case, reviewed everything that had already gone on in the case. And in September of 2023, an order specific to your client was entered by Judge Dempsey saying that defendants pending motions, nobody had done anything on them, and they were not going to be before the court any longer. January of 2024, a scheduling order entered in this case applicable to everyone. The deadline for the state, if you interrupt me again, we're going to have a problem, okay? I am talking.
I understand, Your Honor.
The deadline for the state and the defendants to file any additional pretrial motions is February 6, 2024. Now, I know you weren't in the case February 6, 2024, but when July rolled around and you reviewed what had been filed, you at that time in July or early August should have come to Judge Dempsey and said, Judge Dempsey, I'm new in this case and I need funds for an investigator. In May 14th, 2024, Judge Dempsey, no further pretrial motions will be considered by the court. I told you all in December what the deadlines were going to be. And every one of y'all is like, oh gosh, you know what? I think I need more time. I just find that to be problematic. Very problematic. All right, turning to the state here for a minute. I got this morning a chart of what maybe the redacted indictment is going to look like by the time we...
She's trying to prepare now for what they're going to send back with the jury.
And I'm honestly not sure I even understand it. So have y'all been able to redact the indictment yet, or come up with what you think it's going to look like, or what counts you're going forward on?
Yes and no. So I'm working on the actual redacted indictment. It's been time consuming because I'm trying to make it.
Okay. Can I ask, a simple question, I hope a simple question that might clarify things for all of us. Do you still plan to go forward on count 1, the RICO count, against anybody?
Yes, Your Honor, but we made, so the very first, I guess, chart that you're looking at on page 1, I believe the original, in count 1, there was 191
Interesting question.
overt acts. I've reduced that down to 63 overt acts.
Okay.
And so I think that's going to consolidate and shorten the trial immensely as it relates to the previous trial that Your Honor presided over.
Mm-hmm.
And as I continue to redact the indictment, there may be a few overt acts that I can also erase based on the fact that Mr. Mender did take a plea on Monday or Tuesday of this week. But I will have the redacted indictments, Your Honor, first thing Monday morning, Your Honor.
All right. Do the defense attorneys have this somewhat confusing chart?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah?
They do.
Okay. Is it any less confusing to y'all than it is to me?
I can help try. I mean, it's count 1, and then there's an act. The box says act. Those are all the acts that we'd be going forward on count 1.
Okay.
If you flip to page 3, each one of those contains the actual count in which each defendant is charged with, and that will, that's what we're going to be moving forward with as it relates to each one of the remaining defendants as it relates to the counts.
Okay, so the first 2 pages are just what count 1 is going to look like, although maybe even shorter.
Yes, Judge.
And then basically the remaining, the substantive counts, if you will, against each defendant, those are listed on the last page, page 3, and those basically stay the same. Is that right?
Correct, Your Honor. And
Okay.
each one kind of has a short summary as to what each count or each overt act covers as it relates to the previous indictment and the incident or the act.
Okay. All right. And have the parties exchanged their narrowed witness lists?
Not yet. But we can get that done fairly quickly as it relates to each act and
Okay.
fairly.
So this is not really the pretrial conference. This is the pre-pretrial conference. Okay. Mr. Dark, you had said within your motion that you didn't have anything other than name.
Hello? YouTube. It'd probably help if I close these other YouTube windows.
For
They're
any of the
sitting.
state's witnesses. Is that accurate? And if that's the case, have you talked to counsel for the state about that?
Your Honor, when I look through some of those things, I'm sorry. Your Honor, when I look through some of those things, there are some witnesses that are listed in parts of the discovery where it is a name only, but there are some where more information is provided. I did send an email to Mr. Abbatte related to a separate discovery issue where some aspects of the discovery are completely inaccessible to me.
Inaccessible?
I can't open them at all or download them or anything. And so we're trying to work through that. He did tell me that he would either try to reserve it or get me something else, I think today or this week. But, Your Honor, that was the basis for me making my request. I need assistance going through all this
You
stuff.
told me in December you were having some problems with that, and that should have been cleared up in the month between then and now.
Well, the issue with that is,
Oh boy.
from what I understand, and I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth, but I can at least speak for Mr. Dark. It doesn't sound like he's been through the original discovery that was served to him, and it all works in that. It was very time consuming for me to then basically do it again, but narrow it by moving it to a different Dropbox link. That took me literally 29 hours is what it says. And Your Honor had given me the deadline for the first full week of January, which the last day of the first full week of January is January 12th, which is when I got it to him.
Okay.
I had my personal issues where I was dealing with the family members, oncologists, and things of that nature. So that was more important, to be perfectly honest, than getting it before the end of the first full week of January. So he's clicking on the link that he's saying that on the new discovery link for the narrow version, You can go find it in the full one, but I will make sure that I look at the new link and remedy any issues that I learned about this morning, because that's when I learned about the issues, was this morning, I think around 8:30.
There does not seem to be any kind of advanced communication between anybody, between counsel and counsel, between counsel and the court. I mean, communication really does help, because then we know what we're dealing with before we get to court.
Well, Your Honor, to that point, I emailed Mr. Abbatte several times prior to today. When I first got on the case, I asked for discovery a few times. There's several emails that have gone unanswered. I understand Mr. Abbatte has a heavy caseload. He has personal matters. I have 5 children. I have a heavy caseload as well. But I am simply trying to give my client an actual defense, a robust defense, and I need assistance to do that. So that's the basis of the request. I have no problem going to find anything, but I need assistance to do that, because unfortunately I don't only have this case. I am appointed counsel in several other courtrooms. I have a speedy trial before Judge Potts, and that client is entitled to defense as well. So, Your Honor, that's the basis of my request, and I know that my client would greatly benefit for just having some assistance on this case. Otherwise, it's almost a forced mistrial, or it's almost a forced ineffective assistance.
You setting that up right now for us, given what you keep saying? I would really like for you to do that. You should have been working on this case since you got it in July.
I have been, Your Honor. I
Right.
literally have. I've been way more than 29 hours. I can assure you that.
I would certainly hope so.
I think we all have, but we're still waiting on the 8 terabyte, USB, whatever you want to call it, that we requested.
Oh my God, you guys.
Defense counsel, like every other counsel, had to provide, and we've done our best through Dropbox, but the surefire way to make sure everything works is to provide the 8 terabyte USB, whatever they're called, like we've requested, and nothing has gone unanswered. I've responded to each email that the defense counsel has, despite the fact that one was sent this morning. That's the only one I haven't been able to.
Oh my God, YouTube, get it together. I think I closed all the other. YouTube will do this when I have. I must have a Mr.
Can you go
YouTube
ahead
window
and
open.
provide the 8 terabyte, whatever it is, so that they can give all the discovery back to you on that?
Your Honor, I think that was partly included as a basis for the request for funds, but if worst case scenario,
I'm happy to give you some funds so that you can go out and buy one of those,
yes, Your Honor, I would need that, and then I could most certainly do that.
even though it is not anywhere in your motion, but,
And I can
yeah.
amend that with you.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes, Your Honor. In speaking, prior you were speaking with regards to the redacted indictment in this matter, and then looking at the charges that are listed for Mr. Eppinger, I'd just like to bring the state's attention that count 35 against Mr. Eppinger was dismissed prior in the earlier trial, prior to his severance in this matter, and I still see it listed as the possible charges here, but that count was dismissed.
Oh, I think I know what it is. I have a Twitter window open, and the same one I'm streaming to StreamYard.
In this case.
Okay. Y'all check into that? Do you happen to know, like, a date or was there a written order or anything like that?
It was during the wild commotion of jury selection, Your Honor. I don't remember the exact.
Okay. Well, that'll give them something to look at. Okay. All right, speaking of jury selection, everybody was supposed to look at the jury questions from the case one that y'all were all involved in for at least a little part of it, and narrow down, tell me what y'all don't need anymore, what you think is, irrelevant, if there was anything that you wanted added. Y'all were supposed to have provided those to me by now. I've gotten a very, very short proposed questionnaire from the state. And is it accurate that that is all that the state wants asked?
That is all. Yes, that's.
Okay. And I've gotten nothing from any of the defendants.
Judge, my position on the questionnaire is that the original questionnaire was more than sufficient. I didn't really see a need for any additional questions. To the extent that any of the questions in there were no longer relevant to particular defendants, those would be
Okay, so I'm not sure that we're going to do anything that lengthy. What I envision is potentially having the potential jurors come in and do on kind of a tablet, which we now have newly available from jury services, a series of questions that would be kind of the preliminary things we ask the whole group, and then let y'all follow up as necessary, but after you get the answers. And so the format may change a little bit with regard to exactly how that gets asked. But if nobody has anything new to propose and nothing you particularly want stricken, unless it's, of course, not relevant to a particular defendant, I'll just take a closer look at everything and come up with something that I think is appropriate. And then what is our best time estimate for the trial length at this point?
The question of the day.
I'll stick with the 90 days.
90 days, okay.
But I think it's going to be
Okay.
90 days. I think your prediction of 6 weeks may come true.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. All right, and the jury that eventually was the jury in the last case was sat from the first, 300 or 400 jurors? 400? No, 500. 500? All right. So and that, at the time, was projected to be a 6-month trial. So if we're talking about a 3-month trial, I cannot imagine we're going to need to pull in more than, I'm thinking 400 jurors at most ought to get us what we need.
What is the thunder sound effect?
Anybody on the defense side disagree with that? Okay. All right. And obviously y'all don't need to make a decision at this point in time about whether you wanted to present a defense case or not. But if I say 3 months at the longest, do y'all feel like that's reasonable?
Yes, Mr. Garlington.
Okay.
Yes, for Mr. Eppinger, Your
Okay.
Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Well, I think, Mr. Dark, maybe if you and I want to get together on what kind of funds you need,
Ladies and gentlemen,
but you're going to have to
Chaplain
get
Green.
moving. Because
What?
at this point, I am not moving our start date for our trial.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Okay.
please
And Your Honor,
bow
with
me
respect
as I
to
pray God's
what I had
blessings
was a
upon
proposal.
Okay, there is something coming through. This is Fox. This isn't 11 Alive. There's something coming through the Fox local feed.
Was trial
ceremony
date of
to
February
farewell.
24th.
That's right.
I did file leave and I sent it to your chambers as well as the state. And that is inclusive until the 28th. So I would just ask for a start date.
So knowing that we were going to specially set this trial for February 24th, you recently filed requesting a leave during that time?
No, Your Honor, I sent that on, I think, December 4th or December 6th.
Did you say anything to me about that leave when we were here in December?
No, Your Honor, I sent it to Ms. Rosser, I sent it to Mr. Abbatte.
But you didn't bother to say to the judge during the time we were discussing a potential start date, Judge, I've got to leave in?
Your Honor, we didn't have a date at that time. I don't think we discussed a date at that time, but if we did, I apologize. But yes, I did send it to your chambers and I did send it to the prosecutor.
But while we were here in court, You didn't say anything about it. You didn't. Y'all
Y'all.
communicate with the court as much in advance as you possibly can about any potential issues. Okay?
Oh my God, where is Cash Money
Okay, I'm
Cass?
much more likely to be understanding about things if I know beforehand what I'm dealing with.
And, Your Honor, with respect to that, whenever we speak about the funding, I will address another issue, but I would just rather
Okay,
address that directly.
all right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson.
Yes, Your Honor, just wanted some clarification from the court. So, and this goes as far as other cases that I may have. I know I have other cases that are coming up for trial. Some of them are older than this case. Should I consider this case especially set for February 24th?
Well, I don't know, because apparently we've got an attorney with a leave covers through that date. So I don't know, I'll have to look at his leave. And then anybody else with any leaves already filed that I need to know about when I'm trying to decide on a date?
No,
right.
no leave, Your Honor.
Okay, let me ask y'all this, just terms of kind of procedurally speaking. If we do the tablets with just, the jurors are sitting there filling it out on their own. I know Judge Cox had done a pilot of that in what was going to be a multi-defendant gang case that he had. Everybody ended up pleading before they got very far. But what everyone had agreed to in that case, and what I'd like to propose and see what people think about for this case, is they agreed to first a kind of summary of this is generally what this case is about, instead of a reading of the full indictment prior to the tablet, what used to be kind of the written questionnaire portion of the trial. Could we think about something like that and potentially agree on that? And then second, there was a videotape of the judge basically saying, the very preliminary things the judge always says, this is a criminal case, here are your basic instructions, answer everything honestly. And I think the jury services people were there, and maybe the judge's staff attorney was there, but the judge wasn't there, the attorneys weren't, for either side weren't there, the defendants weren't there. It was just kind of as though we mailed it out and they filled it out at their home. We wouldn't have been there. Does anybody have objection to, and the reason I'm asking is because if everybody is okay with that just being sort of a procedural thing that they all do, and then y'all get the answers, we could still potentially start our jury selection on the 24th without, if the attorneys aren't going to be there anyway, and we already know what the questionnaire is going to say and what the instructions are going to say, we can have them start going through that process and then not actually worry about the fact that Mr. Dark has a leave-in. What do y'all think about that?
Well, Your Honor, as far as the last matter of jury selection, Mr. Eppinger was part of that at that time, and the attorneys were present while the jurors viewed the video. We were all upstairs in the jury room.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That's my mistake. Then I had met with jury services earlier this week, and I guess their recollection was that nobody was there, but I stand corrected.
We were all convened up in the jury services room.
Okay.
And we were there while the jurors watched the video, where we were able to observe them watching the video, because there are some jurors that other attorneys may mention were asleep during the video, on their phones during the video, or had left out. So that is one reason.
Okay.
I believe it was Mr. Steele that brought it up, that the attorneys needed to be there to observe these things.
Okay.
For the jury to assist us in our jury selection process.
All right. So were the attorneys there when the jurors were filling out y'all didn't, I'm sorry, y'all didn't do that with TAP.
They had
I was talking about, I'm sorry. I'm being confusing. I wasn't talking about this case. I was talking about Judge Cox's case, where they did it with the tablets. That's what they all ended up deciding. And I'm wondering if we could decide something similar. But, I mean, we don't have to. If we all want to be in some courtroom somewhere.
Well, Your Honor, the last time when we went through the process, there were 28 people in this room, so there were logistics issues and things of that nature. And if the state is going to parse down the indictment, I don't believe that the video will be 4 hours as it was the last time. So I don't have an objection to showing the video as we did last time and proceeding with the same process.
Your Honor, and previously, everyone was present
Hilton.
for the watching of the video, but when they filled out the jurors' questionnaires, we were not present.
Okay.
They were the jurors were in a separate room. They filled out the questionnaires, and no parties were present during the questionnaire portion, only the viewing of the video, which was the reading of the indictment.
And
Okay, not to interrupt Hilton's appearance here, but Michelle B says, just realized only Garland is in civilian clothes, hence why we can't see the other two defendants. Yes, and we had to do some feed jumping because 11 Alive was like the first to start with the feed, but they had music playing over it, so it was hard to hear what was happening. And the first thing that Whitaker seemed to be addressing with the defense attorneys was the attorneys are responsible for providing street clothes for the clients, for the defendants. So it seems like Whitaker had to chastise, I don't know if it was both attorneys, but at least one of the attorneys for the defendants that we're not seeing. It could have been both, it could have just been one, because some issue was raised about their clothing and maybe being seen. So if you either missed the beginning or you just couldn't hear it because there was the music blaring from 11 Alive, Whitaker, it seems like this was an issue. Whitaker had to educate at least one attorney on that it's their responsibility. So this teaching the lawyers how to lawyer, especially for Mr. Dark, started right away today.
all that happened during the video was the reading of the indictment?
That is correct.
Okay, so were there any I would propose to give some basic preliminary instructions, I was thinking via video, prior to them even getting handed a tablet by jury services and told, you know, here's your jury questionnaire, you're just doing it on a tablet instead of in writing. Would anybody have an issue with that?
That's what occurred. So the video was first. So the video with some preliminary instructions, the reading of the indictment happened first, and then maybe that following Monday, I believe, jurors came in and they filled out the questionnaires without us. So the video happened first.
All right. I am not wanting to make jurors come back 3 and 4 and 5 different times. I'm thinking it is not going to be a 4-hour video, it is probably not even going to be a 1-hour video. I would like for it to be a summary of the indictment, since they're going to hear the whole indictment later anyway, just like this is a case about whatever we all determine it will say it's about. And then just the preliminary. It's a criminal case, defendants have a presumption of innocence, you need to be honest on your questions, that kind of thing. And then have jury services say, here's the tablets. Are y'all thinking you want to be present for that? And it's fine if you do, you have a right to be.
The video judge?
Yeah.
Yes. I think it would be.
Okay, all right. Given that, then I probably won't do it as a video. If we're all gonna be present anyway, I'll probably just sit there and read the instructions to them. Because what's the point of the video if we're all there? Okay. All right, well, if that's the case, then we do have to take into consideration the leave that's apparently already filed. So let me look again at what looks good for dates.
And just a quick clarification in the chat, I know the term sounds similar, but like technically a preliminary hearing would be, and I think a great example, I know Survivor Speaks has been covering this, I believe Verdict Mel's been covering it, and Taylor Umbridge have all been covering the Naziah Harris case where Jarvis Butts is accused of possibly unaliving Neziah Harris. Now, that's a preliminary hearing, and the judge has made a decision that that can, in fact, go to trial. With a preliminary hearing, you're looking at, is there enough here, sufficient evidence that this can go to trial with this defendant, right? And because that case dealt with a missing, they never found Neziah Harris. They found some of her clothing, but they didn't have a body. You know, there's a bit of a standard to reach when you don't know that somebody's actually dead. Is there enough evidence to suggest that she could be dead and we could take this person to trial for the murder, right? So they went through all that. That was preliminary hearings. What we're looking at now is a pretrial conference, and that's really getting the ducks in a row to make sure, you know, when can we go to trial? Can we start trial on time? What's still unresolved that needs to be resolved before we can go to trial? You know, tidying up loose ends on different matters. So pretrial conference versus preliminary hearing, they're all things that happen before trial actually starts, but they are different. A preliminary hearing is kind of like a miniature trial within a trial without a jury. So there is a difference there, I think is important to know, but pretty simple once you can compartmentalize it.
As we approach March, I think it starts to be everybody's spring breaks, which a lot of the private schools have spring break that first week in March. So if we're not going to do the last week in February, we might want to jump to the second week in March. When is the state, when are you going to know in terms of witnesses that you actually intend to use this time around?
How many witnesses for the state? Big
That's
question.
usually a pretrial conference thing, exchanging the witness lists, the final witness lists.
She's telling us all about trial 1 being a cluster F.
We can have a condensed witness list to counsel by, let's say, next Friday.
Next Friday. Get mad, Whitaker. Yeah, she rolled her eyes. Maybe bark at them a little bit. And not for nothing, but that would make me call into question. You have Abbatte say, hey, we condensed down this, we're only going to look at 63 overt acts now. We condensed it down. We sent a new version over to the defense. Mr. Dark, the public defender, is like, well, there's stuff I can't access in that file. And Abbatte is like, well, I spent 29 hours condensing it, and the links are available in the old version. So he could just go click the links in the old version. But if I have to, I'll send the links in the new version I sent somebody, which, I don't know. In my line of work, working for clients, I couldn't send a new version of something and expect them to go back to an old version and for them to figure out how to make it complete and whole on their own, right? That would be a big no-no for me. So questions there. But you have Abbatte saying at the beginning of the hearing, we've condensed stuff down. How do you condense down exhibits but not have a ballpark? How do you need a whole nother week to get a witness list? Shouldn't you have been working through that as you whittle down what acts you're going to present and what social media posts and YouTube videos you're going to introduce or move to introduce? Right? That should kind of go hand in hand. So I feel like whatever version the state may have sent over to the public defender that the public defender is saying, hey, there's issues with it, that gives some, I think Whitaker should give some grace to the public defender on that now. So
that's January 24th. Can you have it filed by noon?
Yes, you want to file it?
Hmm?
You want to file another? Yes, we can file it. It'll just be,
Or at least exchange it and provide the court with a copy.
So deadline is noon on Friday.
Mr. Dark, I'm looking for a leave filed, and I'm not seeing one. When was
Okay.
it filed?
She's asking Mr. Dark, the public defender, when did you file that leave that I didn't know about? So let's see. Let's see how this plays out for Mr. Dark.
Ms. Ross, are you with us on Zoom?
Yes, I am. I sent a copy, but I didn't see that it was filed, Judge, until you just mentioned something.
I mean, do you see it filed at this point? I don't see it.
I am going to check.
And if not, we're going to get an order out today, especially setting this trial for the day we already picked.
I think Mr. Dark is Demise McMullen's attorney. Oh, they showed the defendants a little bit there. Oh, is it Dart with a T or Dark?
No, it looks like I sent it to Mr. Abbatte and Ms. Rosser on the 6th.
Of,
December.
did you file it?
It does not look like it got filed that day, Your Honor.
Does it look like it got filed ever?
I believe, I'll have to go back through my filings and see if it got filed or maybe rejected, but we submitted it the same day that we sent it to your chambers and Mr. Abbatte. But I will go back and double check, but I do not see it in my e-file notifications either.
Neither do I, Judge. I don't see that it's been filed on the docket.
I don't either. Do you have a copy of it that you could provide to the court?
Yes, Your Honor, I sent it to Ms. Rosser, but if.
Judge, I forwarded to you about 30 minutes ago in an email.
Okay. It just came through.
But Your Honor, it was originally sent back in December.
Okay, but it wasn't filed and it's still not filed.
Understood.
Wasn't filed, wasn't mentioned, and is still not filed.
Somebody did mention a leave, a conflict though, right? Back in December. I'm not saying it was the same attorney, but I'm just saying somebody did.
Well, and then, I don't, how are we ever going to try this case? You've got leave for a couple of weeks, a month, every month. I mean, that's just not going to work.
And Your Honor, with respect to that date and the April dates, everything else is movable, but the April dates is what I was gonna speak to the court about.
Why don't you just come up here right now and let's speak?
Oh, she's gonna chastise him at the bench.
Can you go ahead and
I have no doubt.
file the special setting of this case for February, to begin February 24th, please?
February 24th.
I'm
She's
sorry,
just sua sponte choosing the date.
Go ahead and get an order, especially setting this case, ready to file.
Okay.
Wow. She's calling him to the bench. Guys, she's about to teach him how to be a lawyer off microphone. Tambourine says, I feel like Paige be talking to me at times. Yeah, the question's in the chat at the exact same time here. Is he wearing a hoodie? I mean, it looks like one of those like type of like sport jacket overcoats. We need Derek guy, the suit guy, Derek guy, to tell us what this is called, right? Because it does have the buttons and it has the tail seam here in the back. Yeah, like a hoodie coat jacket. That's kind of what I would come up with. I'm sure there's a technical term. Jim M says he's part of the RICO. Oh no. Yeah, like a pea coat. Yeah, I agree with the you gotta dress up for court. But at the same time, you know, sometimes you gotta play the game. You gotta, sometimes looking like you belong can keep someone from getting unirrationally pissed off at you, right? It might not be deserved or warranted or have anything to do with the merits, but and I'm thinking of the day Woody showed up in the suit. He said, "You guys are gonna believe me today." Came in the suit. Yeah, and it is, yep, don't forget it's cold in there. It is cold in there. So he could be dressed formally underneath it, and then he's just wearing a pea coat that happens to be, like, hooded, but he's not wearing that as his meant-to-be court dress. So... No, I think the hood is part of the coat because it has these, like, things that look like they're coming out of the, like, collar of the coat. Unless maybe you're right. Like, maybe this is the lapel, if that's the technical term. And then the hoodie is actually here. I don't know. Oh, my mouse isn't on the screen. But there does look like there could be a separate lapel here and then a hoodie that's separate here. But I'm not sure. So... And, like, these look like they could be above the lapel for a non-hooded pea coat. Oh, they finally muted. They finally muted. So, and, you know, in any case, I think whatever's going on with a public defender individually, you know, public defenders are overworked. You know, they don't have the resources. I saw someone mention a paralegal in the chat. That might not be an option for someone who's trying a case as a public defender, right? So when you hear Abbatte say, you know, I put 29 hours into something, appreciate you for line iteming your billable hours or whatever, but you have other resources on your team. The state has resources. You could ask someone else to jump in on something. A public defender might not have that. So... Yeah, and I gotta say, those are two good shades of the same
and then April 28th,
hue.
9th, and 30th. And I mean, you know, it's possible if we get started, we'll be finished by then, but it's not a guarantee. And if that's the case, we're just gonna have to take those days off.
So she's going to honor the leave that the public defender needs after speaking with him.
That would be well, it's not going to be 7 weeks of trial because we're going to have to do jury selection, and jury selection is going to take a while.
You're going to try to move it before February 24th?
So we have to work around those dates.
I agree, Haley.
All right, if we start jury selection that first week in March, while that is spring break for a lot of people, it'll just be that any potential jurors out there in the Fulton County universe who will have been summoned for that week will already have told jury services whatever their excuse is before they ever get to us. So they just basically will never get to us. And so I guess it won't matter it won't be like we've got jurors saying, I'm on spring break this week, or my kids are on spring break this week. They will already have told jury services and been deferred. So that probably will not be the big problem for us that I had been anticipating. So I'm thinking we plan to start with jury selection on March 3rd. And if nobody is willing to waive watching the giant group of jurors get told the preliminary instructions, then that's when we'll have to start. And then, I don't know, we'll just go from there. Which means we'll have a couple of gaps in April probably for those few days, like during the trial itself. All right. Okay, so y'all are all going to file whatever narrow, small motions in limine specific to whatever these two music videos are by noon on Monday. The redacted indictment is going to be ready and shared with defense counsel and the state also by noon on Monday. Or do you need to close a business on Monday? Close a business on Monday. Monday's not technically a work day anyway, since it's MLK Day, but we'll call that 5 p.m. on Monday. Witness lists to all of us by noon on Friday, January 24th. We will be starting jury selection March 3rd. We will be taking April 21st, 2nd, and 3rd, and April 28th, 29th, and 30th off, if we're still going at that point in time. Beyond those dates, anybody have any dates that I need to know right now that are stretching out through the next
anything else
4 months, maybe 5 months from now, that is something immovable for y'all? Okay. All right, so that should be our only pause in the trial. Who thinks that's going to be true? Not me. Okay, so we're going to meet.
She said not me.
Let's see. Can the state also have any response they want to file to whatever motions in limine get filed by next Friday? Close of business? Okay. All right, so why don't we plan to get back together if need be? I think we need to get back together and check in with each other so that y'all can keep me apprised of how we're progressing.
That word.
How about Let's plan to have court, let's say 9:30 on Thursday, February 6th, to take up, deal with whatever we need to.
Motions and limine.
Oh, okay. That whole week?
Yes, starting on Monday, I'll be on the first case of the County.
Do you anticipate it that still being going on Friday? Could we maybe do something Friday?
Maybe with the jury deliberating at that point.
Okay.
I have no objection to logging on via Zoom if you
Okay. All right. Let's do that. Then let's say Friday at 9:30, Friday, February 7th, for we'll just call that pretrial conference also.
I'm calling it whatever. They'll probably do motions and
Anything
limine.
else anybody needs to bring to the court's attention at this point in time?
Your Honor, Attorney Johnson for Mr. Eppinger. We're just trying to get some clarification as regards to the jury questionnaire. I was just wondering, are we going to adopt the one that we used before and people can submit any additions that they want to it, or how is that process going?
Oh my gosh, so the additions, any potential additions, I told y'all in December, when we were all here in court, were due to me yesterday.
Oh, okay.
I plan to subtract from it. So had you given me any additions to consider, I would consider those, but that deadline has passed.
Understood, Your Honor. I guess I was wondering, will we be going through the formal questionnaire line by line to determine if the omissions that you all wish to make for all of us to agree upon?
I had wanted to do that this morning, which is why I asked this morning earlier if anybody had anything they thought could be deleted. And I got kind of a general, well, anything that's not relevant because it has to do with some other defendant, which I'll take a look at. If you've got specifics and you want to go through it right now, we can do that. Otherwise, if you want to just send to everybody over email potential deletions for me to consider, if you could get that.
Yes, Your Honor, I'll get that.
She said it's too late, it's too late, it's too late to add questions. But I'll consider cutting some stuff out. That's very Whitaker.
To me by the end of the day on Monday.
You'll have it, Your Honor.
Okay. And then I will go through, and on the 7th, when we get back together, we can kind of parse it more specifically.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Anything else?
Y'all get to work. Mr. Dark, you and I talk about what you might need in your order for any kind of funds. So if you'll come on up here. Everybody else is excused, and I'll see y'all on the 7th.
All right, and then the feed ends right after this. So when you hear talking about funds, when you're a public defender, you get funding through the public defender's office to fund things like expert witnesses that you might need to call. Mr. Dark specifically asked for money for an investigator earlier at the beginning of the stream. So that's not unusual. It's not unusual. But it does, something to consider there. You don't just have, Brian Steele, his law firm. And again, his client was Jeffrey Williams. Jeffrey Williams has assets. He has a net worth, a substantial net worth. But Brian Steele had resources, and his client was able to afford things like trial scientist Trish Renard, Miss Trish, right? Public defender's office is never going to pay for Miss Trish. Not saying that Miss Trish wouldn't, out of the kindness of her heart, want to step up for a cause of her own will, but just saying certain things are not at your disposal when you are being represented by a public defender, or you're paying for private representation, but you're capped, right? So think of the difference here. And, I'm sure, I think we heard Doug talk about it, but the 6 that got to go to trial together, they got to benefit from the shared workload, right? And that's not something now you only have 3. And let's not leave the questions and concerns for Mr. Dark. I mean, Eppinger's attorney, Eric Johnson, according to Miss Sylvia, you guys heard me, I was curious what's going on with this immunity motion. Miss Sylvia said that whole hearing that we were supposed to watch on the 13th, Paige said it's too late. It's too late. You're moving too late to do this, the suppression of evidence. So maybe we'll hear something come of that later on. But I think Eric Johnson's a paid attorney, and he dropped the ball as well. So again, it's not just public defenders not good attorneys. Public defenders can be very good attorneys, but they still have limited resources. And private defense attorneys can get you out of anything. None of it is just black and white like that. So, yeah. Oh boy. But for a recap here on important dates. So I know Whitaker had initially said like February, but after she had the conference with Mr. Dark at the bench, where she seemed to suddenly become more empathetic and understanding of his need for a leave, she switched to accommodate, which I think is the right thing to do. If you're not going to switch to accommodate, what's the alternative? Probably have to have a change of counsel, which would mean what? So I don't know if that change to accommodate was because that was still the most efficient way to keep the trial moving forward, or if it was out of empathy. But we do know that after they spoke with each other at the bench, we're getting a March 3rd for jury selection start. Now, Whitaker said that they think she wants to pool 400 potential jurors for this process. So jury selection probably not going to be done in a day, right? Let's say jury selection maybe takes a week. You'd still be looking at the trial, maybe day one of trial. March 3rd's a Monday. So let's say jury selection takes a week. Maybe, this is just a guess, the 10th, a start date for trial. So it seems like Whitaker is hoping that they can get the trial started and get all the way through trial and get to a verdict before April 21st, which is when that first leave is needed for Mr. Dark. So those are some ballpark dates. As far as homework, both sides have some homework. So again, Eric Johnson put up a fight there to add some jury questions in. Whitaker's like, you're not going to add any, but maybe I'll consider what you want to take out. Send that to me in an email and I'll look it over by Monday. What we want motions in limine filed by noon Monday from the defense. Apparently there's 2 new music videos that the state wants to introduce, and the defense might either have opposition wholly to the videos, or maybe they want to say, like, can we cut this segment out? We'll have to see what those say. We can read the filings. The state still needs to turn over a redacted indictment, right? So we have this big whopping indictment from the initial 28 co-defendants. We're only dealing with 3, so certain things are going to be redacted. Eppinger's attorney was also quick to note, hey, Judge Whitaker, look, I'm seeing count 35 is still on the most current indictment, but we worked that out. It was dropped. So why is it still on this indictment? I'm raising that issue now. That way you're aware when they send you their final copy, you can make sure that it's not still there, right? That's not supposed to be there anymore. So Eric Johnson was sharp on that. And then next Friday, the state's supposed to have their final witness list, right? So that's a bit of a deja vu. You guys were calling it in the chat. Whitaker called it out too. Like, witness list is supposed to be in. The state's supposed to have their witness list in before we start trial. So we're not going to do this introducing witnesses and changing up the witness list 6 months in. So those are some key things. And I do believe this February 7th pretrial conference, I do think maybe we'll hear some motions in limine. Here's some issues. We want to make sure this part of this piece of evidence is redacted or covered up. Names on exhibits maybe aren't shown, or we're moving to keep something out entirely. So we'll probably hear some arguments like that on that conference day. So February 7th will be, I'm guessing, the next time we get together on this case. If I do see the motions in limine get filed, we could do a live and read those next week. But that'll be short. That wouldn't be any type of stream. So yeah, Corky Marie, that was confusing to me. The indictment should have been redacted. I mean, This in the witness list again, Abbatte said, I spent 29 hours making a new version of the file that we sent over to the defense recently. You know, when you're whittling something down, you're consolidating it down, you should be doing that with your witnesses. If you're cutting certain exhibits out that you had to call a witness for, and that's the only reason you needed that witness for, you should know that we don't need that witness anymore. Strike them off the list. Same thing with the indictment. As we're going through the things that we're consolidating, why aren't we doing this work as we go? Like, I don't know. So that seems like a inefficient use of time to do those activities in a disjointed, separate time block. Right? It's something that if you spent maybe an extra hour taking a couple seconds here and there in that 29 hours, you could have had all 3 parts done. So I don't know. I don't know. Oh boy. I see a lot of people heading in here. I believe Survivor Speaks has popped in because I'm seeing her name everywhere. So shout out to Survivor Speaks. Again, we talked about I'm going to call it the Jarvis Butts case. It's really the story of Naziah Harris. But Survivor Speaks has been covering that. So make sure you're hopping over there if you're interested in what's going on with that. And then I see Survivor saying hi back to Jason, so she is in here. Let's see. Chad Diggy saying Stacy Sibbett. Yeah, and Milwaukee says, will Woody be called back for the Nut case? I mean, he's so integral to that, and we still have to go through that murder. Because Demise McMullen is charged with that murder, so I can't imagine he won't be. Renee Stevenson, I think this is a great question, and it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, right? It's an expectation, kind of like a hypothetical, forward-thinking hypothetical here. But Renee, I don't think you're far off. Renee says, what happens when there is more evidence in the new drop? So Abbatte spends like 29 hours consolidating stuff. Public defender's like, hey, I couldn't open the links that were within it. Abbatte's like, well, you should have used the links in the old version. Whitaker seemed to lose it more at Mr. Dark than Abbatte. But what if he clicks those links? What if Mr. Dark clicks those links and there's other stuff they've got to deal with that might take longer than the conference they want to hold on February 7th, right? So a whole nother can of worms. And if that happens, that seems like Abbatte's fault because the issue would stem from the new version. But I'd be interested to see in who gets the scorn, who bears the brunt of the scorn. So, Isabella here, thanks for the super sticker and the support. Yep, also, and you guys have, thanks Aisha here for this update. Others had mentioned it earlier, the Supreme Court is keeping the TikTok ban in place. But, you know, and I actually listened to those arguments about, you know, would divesting, would that solve the problem? You know, is this a ByteDance thing, or should be worried about other social media platforms? It was really good Supreme Court oral arguments. If you want to go listen to that, I listened to it through Emily D. Baker. But I believe you can stream the oral arguments right from the Supreme Court's website if you want to go see what was being argued by both sides. Really interesting stuff. However, in passing, I saw some buzz that, you know, the executive branch, Joe Biden, right? We're about to have a transition from the Biden administration to the Trump administration. And it seems like in sources say ways, both Biden and Trump are giving hints that they're not really going to enforce this ban. But at the same time, TikTok, ByteDance themselves has said we're going to shut off the app for the United States on the 19th, right? So is ByteDance, are they going to change what they've said about shutting down because Biden signals that, hey, we're not going to enforce it for the couple days that we're going to have here as a carryover, and also because Trump and his administration say, hey, we want to meet with you guys, right? So this is a loss for users on TikTok because this leaves it all up in the air for them. However, I don't think it's necessarily clear cut that this is the be all end all of TikTok in the United States, right? We still have to see how these other things play out. But this was an opportunity. This was like you know, on runways for planes, they have like nets to help stop a plane that the brakes aren't working or something. It's like one net. The plane has gone through one net, but there's still a couple more nets. So this would have been a way to save TikTok. That is no longer on the table. But I still think there's some stuff up in the air. So, oh, McReekins. So, okay, I can relate when I'm in other chats, and I know a lot of people in the chat here can relate too. McReekins says, I never know whether to join the live part and go back and watch the beginning or jump in the chat live while watching it from the start. So there were some fireworks. So if you're listening to me in real time right now, there were some fireworks. I'd say, you know, giving you a description wouldn't really cut it. You kind of got to watch it play out. But other than that, a lot of it was just date setting, right? And we just did a quick recap of that. So as far as information, you don't really need to rewind to get the info, but you can rewind to get the vibe, if that makes sense. So there's that. If you're not watching in real time, hey, when you catch up. Yeah, Bite Dance. That guy Nick says, if I was Bite Dance, I'm off. I'm done. I'm not dealing with this. Touche says, good morning, Kat and everyone. Good to see you. Touche, one of our most recognized names here. Good to see you, Touche. Christine Covey with the pessimistic prediction. She says, only 5 months? No way. Shout out to the mods and Kat. Now, I think the pressure's on because Whitaker, I still think Whitaker wants efficiency to the point where she was probably, I agree with you guys in the chat that were saying, she would have liked to see this off her calendar completely by other resolutions, right? Final pleas, whatever. We even had an interesting question from her about, it seemed like she was doing the Whitaker like, all right, state, talking about this indictment, what about count 1? To me, that question screamed, to me personally, my opinion. Whitaker doesn't want to see them trying this RICO count with this new trial, the second trial. I think she thinks that it's a waste of time for them to try. And, you know, the judge shouldn't be hinting or coaching at strategy, but at the same time, I wonder if all of these motions for this whole trial 2 years ago, I wonder what would have been different if Whitaker was on the bench from the start, right? Would there have been such a, hey, you want to bring in 6 gang experts? I don't think that that would have been the case if we had a different judge from the start. So she signaled that she has a different take on the sufficiency of the evidence there, at least relating to some big conspiracy to violate RICO. So, let's see. And for sympathy here for Whitaker, full drinking, half thinking with the comedy says, back off my girl. I told y'all I'll handle it this weekend. We had a fight last night. It's my fault. Her mood is crazy. Miss you, boo. And I think this is white woman Whitaker. I could be confused on the exact specifics of the WWW, but I know it doesn't mean World Wide Web. So this is a comedic take on how she's acting, but I do want to underscore, it was Miss Sylvia that I heard it from. Whitaker had a loss in the family, and I believe it was a sister, right? A sibling. So, you know, this is not really a good time and place for a separate issue that doesn't relate to the trial to kind of pervade. Right? Not a good place. But at the same time, we're human. Humans have emotions. And maybe that's under the surface bubbling up with some of this tension that we've had today. So, and that's what I've heard. I know she was dealing with some type of personal emergency, and I heard that it was the death of a family member, particularly a sister. So, and judging by how Whitaker has expectations for efficiency, Whitaker might be the type of person, and I'm sure everybody in the chat knows somebody that's like this if you can't relate a little bit yourself. There are people that feel like they always have to press the gas to the point where they'll burn themselves out, where they can't step back and realize, like, I'm not in a good place. I actually need to step back and take a deep breath, right? Because I can't separate this from what's going on over here, right? And Whitaker, she's so like, gas pedal to the metal, let's go, that I can picture her having that type of always moving, can't stop, even when maybe you should. So just something to consider. And again, she's a judge, so that's a really precarious thing to deal with and maybe try to act like or push back on the back burner and steam forward through when it could impact what's happening in the courtroom, right? So not a not a great excuse, but I can understand. Retired Phoenix Chief became green. Thanks for becoming a new member. STS right on the microphone commentary says Fulton County is still clueless about IT issues. At least the sound system appears to be working so far. Yeah, we got like bonus IT from, we had 11 Alive playing the boopy boop background music. Like, okay, thanks 11 Alive for the, I don't know. And then we had Fox. We switched over to Fox. And what's awkward is I think that was like a funeral, like a memorial service for a military member. At first, it seemed like a really loud door slammed in the courtroom. It sounded weird. It sounded like extra loud. We don't typically hear that in courtroom 1C. And I thought Whitaker was keeping a straight poker face while this noise was going on, and some like deputies in the hallway calling things to order. But it seems like Fox blended in a feed from a totally separate thing that they were covering somewhere else. Right? As it kept going, it seemed like a memorial service. Like, so we've got IT issues from the courthouse. We've got it from the camera pool. We've got it from the news stations. So that it's a whole time today. It is a whole time. And thank you for the support, STS. Miss AB, right in time, says, never a dull moment. Never a dull moment. Right? And, once I realized what it was, I don't mind, like, a little humor because the stream is doing something. It's always nice to have a little break, get a little laugh in there. Shamrock, I saw Cash Money Cass is in the chat. We were all thinking of you when this noise was happening, and Shamrock captured it. Cass will be great at this, including the army howls. So Whitaker's like losing her mind. Then there's like marching orders in the background. I hope you do a video. I think you'll do great with it. But the chat was thinking about you, Cass. We all knew that you would be very humorous, whatever it is you decide to do when you get here. Let's see. Yeah, said just saying it simply, that RICO is a huge waste of time, resources, all of that. Oh, and your name is said with an S, and I don't know if this is making me think of it or because of your comment, but Seti Nash, Seti with a C, had an interview. He himself interviewed former Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard. So let me get that link for you guys. Went up yesterday. Seti Nash. Let's see, share link. I'm calling it Seti Paul Howard. It's a long name. But check that out, especially, this is a short day, so especially if you're looking at something to watch that's kind of like YSL related, Paul Howard goes in and gives some advice on what district attorneys could be doing differently. And I'd be interested in those of you in the chat who live in the area or have followed more stuff in Fulton County when Paul Howard was still DA. I mean, what do you guys think of it? Because I only know a little bit about Paul Howard. But I know there was a little bit of controversy. So, I don't have the full context to say, I thought some of the stuff he said was interesting, but I wonder if I'd be like, well, of course you're saying that now, if I knew more. So I would really lean into you guys for your insights on that. And I would imagine Flesh of the Gods typically goes through like some interviews like this, recaps some of the stuff that's going on, and obviously the chat gets to discuss. So Flesh of the Gods will probably have a good community conversation reacting to Paul Howard's thoughts and insights there. So definitely check that out. I'll update the description to include that link if you're on Replay Crew. And I think Boo, yeah, I don't know exactly who that's about, but if it's a Paul Howard thing, yeah, okay, there you go. Thank you for the update. This is kind of what I was like wondering, right? I like have a vague recollection of this. But more specifically here, Slime Rose says he used to cheerlead Glanville and in the beginning called Thug a D-Lord. Like a drug lord. Okay. So yeah, so one of those things, like watching this interview, do you get the, like, I might agree with what you're saying when I take what you're saying at face value, but at the same time, were you practicing what you are preaching now? Are you just saying this in retrospect? Right? So, and Mookie, good to see you, says Paul is cool. I met him when I was on the grand jury before. So shout out, grand jury is a whole different experience from serving on a petit jury. So very interesting. I've seen you mention it a little bit in, I think, Flesh of the Gods chat mostly. But cool to hear. Cool to hear. Yeah, and Steph says, gotta watch that later, and you didn't know him, I think Paul Howard. So you'll be watching it kind of with the same lens I had, where, you know, I heard the name, I've heard that there was a little controversy with Paul Howard in some way. But I watched it, and it was kind of like it was a bit of finger wagging at Fani Willis, and it's interesting to see, you know, I think sometimes with politics, right? You get somebody new in, you think the last person had a problem, you get these rose-colored glasses. It's like honeymoon syndrome. You think things are going to get better, and maybe for like the short term, things seem rosy and good. And then, oops, nothing's actually playing out the way that was platformed or promised, right? And I kind of wonder, you know, I got a little bit of that kind of vibe. So... Touche is saying this defense is going to wish Love was around to take some of the heat because they are not off to a good start. Yikes. When you said this, you know, like I read these things, I don't read them out loud over the court talking, but as soon as you said this and I saw it come up in the chat, I was like, great point. Great point. You know, Love her, hate her, neutral about her, dislike her, but don't fully hate her. She had the target on her. She had the biggest target on her in that courtroom, and she's no longer there, right? Black Butterfly at the beginning of, I don't know if it'll show now, but Law and Crime, if you go back to the beginning of the stream, we were sitting on Law and Crime's thumbnail of Judge Whitaker making a face, and Black Butterfly is like, I remember that day. That's the moment she called Love disorganized. Right? So we have a freeze frame moment, and there are several freeze frame moments of Whitaker losing it at Love. Some at Glanville. That like April last year, where Glanville was yelling and Love was screaming, and Glanville's like, I'm bringing the jury out. Like, sit down, stop it. I'm bringing the jurors back in. And the jurors that have done interviews, they've said, we heard it. We couldn't hear the words, but we could overhear the commotion when they were yelling on days like that. But now that target is not in the courtroom. So there's less of that contrast, right? The judge doesn't have this person with their target on the back that's going to be the most annoying. The target of the biggest lashing out, or you're so disorganized, or get it together. That's gone. There's no more contrast. So who else? Where does the target get dispersed to? And today it seemed like Mr. Dark had that target on his back. So I think this was very, very insightful. And it's one of those things that, again, that's that subtlety in the courtroom. Little things that shouldn't make a difference, but they do. We can't act like they don't. STS says 1,000 watching, 300 likes. Hit that like, please. Guys, if you're about to get on your way out, we will be getting together at least on February 7th for, they're calling it a pretrial conference again, but I think we're going to go through maybe some motions. We'll get some arguments. We'll see how those play out with a different lead prosecutor. It seems like Abbatte is steering the ship. And he wasn't alone at the state's table today. He had Hilton and Atkins there. We'll also get to hear a little bit more from these new attorney faces. A little bit more than just some housekeeping stuff. So I think that will be interesting on the 7th. So mark your calendars. That's a Friday. And we can get together and read any motions in limine, unless they're like a page long. I'm not going to do a live for that. I'll just share the page as a community post. So there's that. But if you are about to get out of here, hit that like button and let us know where you're going next, what you're watching next. So, let's see. Yeah, Flesh of the Gods heard his name and he was summoned. He was summoned. So good to see you, Flesh of the Gods. Let's see. Chloe Albert's Revenge, good to see you. It says, with Hilton involved, they need to add a preliminary pre-mistrial conference. Just to make sure the paperwork isn't riddled with omissions. Always love a good recall here to riddled. And speaking of mistrial, if you guys tuned in late, there was a part earlier where Mr. Dark, public defender, my guess is for Demise McMullen. Because Eppinger, we know Eric Johnson was speaking on Eppinger's behalf. And then sitting up in the front, you had Damekion Garlington, and I missed his attorney's name. So, conclusion here, my brain, process of elimination, Mr. Dark is public defender represented. He's court-appointed defender for Demise McMullen. We get him kind of hinting. We can only hear him. We can't see them. The camera's not panning. But we hear over the microphone hinting at mistrial and ineffective assistance of counsel. And Whitaker, clocked it right away. She's basically like, oh, you're eyeballing that already. So, just speaking of mistrial here, seems like this public defender is trying to preempt appellate arguments, which I'm sure he wouldn't be, another attorney would be assigned to that. But he's like, yeah, I'll just fall on my sword day one. I'll just be a bad attorney. He can make an ineffective assistance of counsel claim. And Whitaker's like, yeah, I bet you'd like that. I bet you'd like to do that. So definitely worth going back and watching that moment. I think I timestamped it. 41 minutes into this stream. So when this ends, if you want to look at that, I'll add timestamps to the description. I put 41 minutes into this stream. The public defender already preempting for a mistrial or ineffective assistance of counsel argument, and Whitaker clocks it, was my note. So, oh boy. Big Baby Jane says, I'm feeling deja vu. Is anybody else? Yeah. I think we're gonna feel like that when we go through this trial again. Especially when Love was in the courtroom more for trial 1, really like the first 7-8 months. We were going over a lot of these things that pertain to other people and not the 6 that were in the room, right? So I think we're still gonna have a lot of moments that feel like deja vu, even if they don't relate in any way, shape, or form, except for count 1 to defendants that are no longer in the room with us. So I think we have a lot of this on our plate. Thank you for the 2, Big Baby Jane. That girl Mia, thanks for becoming green again. Great to see you. Hope you are doing well. Yeah, Miss AB with the reminder says, remember they said that it's cold in the courtroom. And I loved the chat. The chat was like, is it a hoodie? It could be separate. The lapel could be separate. And then as soon as the chat was getting to that point, it could be 2 separate pieces of a wardrobe, like a pea coat with a hoodie underneath it. The chat, a bunch of people in the chat and myself were included, were like, wow, how did this guy get 2 shades of black clothing to match? Right? You ever try to wear black on black on black, but one is a little bit of when you put it next to the other, one is a cooler black and the other is warmer. You can see a hint of red when you put them next to each other. It's such a pain. It's such a pain. But they looked so close in shade that it looked like it could have been one piece of clothing, and I don't think it was. So that was awesome. That was awesome. I have a lot of pieces of black clothing in my wardrobe, so I wish I could match the shades better. Survivor Speak says, love Queen Slime and chat. It's a raid. Okay, so guys, on StreamYard, I don't get to see the alert that you guys see on YouTube where it says so-and-so has rated, their channel has rated, say hi to their viewers. I only get to see that when I'm in the chat. So thank you and welcome to everyone coming over from Survivor Speaks. Again, if you've been here, Survivor Speaks was live this morning and for the past couple of days covering the Neziah Harris case. So a lot of you guys in the chat have been covering that. Great place to go and rewatch it. And it was across, since the hearing took several days, it's across several days. So I'm going to link to video 1 that Survivor Speaks did, but just know that there's more. There's a series. Day 1. Okay. Okay, so there is the first one. And again, just go to her live tab on her channel and you can find in succession, you can catch up with all of the preliminary drama. So Tech Cloud, you guys are learning Spanish in here. I've heard a lot of good things about Duolingo. I really have. Chloe says dart as in a Temu shart. No, 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 no. Don't do this to us, Chloe. Don't do this. Oh, man. My name is Mr. Dart, and I represent Demise McMullen. It doesn't have the same ring to it. Doesn't have the same ring. I think Shannon Stillwell, his name, it has alliteration, right? It had a nice ring to it. So you had Shart, Shannon Stillwell. You know, I love a good alliteration. I don't think we have the same here for Dart, unfortunately. Amber C says, so ready to be back with you in March. Thanks, Kat. And again, so jury selection is going to start on the 3rd. There was some streaming and coverage of jury selection first time around. We'll have to get an update. I'm sure Kathy Roussan from Law and Crime will let us know if there's going to be a camera pool for jury selection and what we'll be able to actually get a bird's eye view into. And shout out to Fox, because that's who we actually watched today. We didn't watch Law and Crime. Law and Crime just didn't start their feed. I don't know what was going on. But yeah, so again, look for those updates either as a community post or X. If you follow me on X, I'll update if we get an update on if there will be cameras those days. That way you'll know that we'll be live or not for it. That girl Mia says, my days are so long without y'all. Guys, it's been... Can I tell you that I actually... When I was doing the streaming days and had to do a lot of my fulfillment work on evenings and weekends to keep up with my workload for clients, can I tell you I actually felt more productive? It was like I was full steam on go all the time. It was a routine. You do the streams, we wrap up the stream, I get to work. On these days where we haven't had streams, I don't know what it is. I've got to like get myself in gear. I wake up early. Most of the time I'm up at like 6, 7, 8 in the morning. And, you know, when I had streams, I would get work done between 6 and whatever time that we start. And then I'd start the stream. Without that happening, almost every day I'm like moseying along and it's like 9, 10 o'clock before I start getting work done. So I really haven't felt any more productive or felt like I'm managing my time better now that these streaming days have ended. And I think it's so weird. I've got to get myself in gear. But it's just such a weird thing that happens when you have a routine versus when you lose that routine. It really makes a big difference. So I feel you here, and it's good to see you today, that girl Mia. Tat Cloud says, Queen Slime, we miss you. I see you in other chats, Tat Clouds. Glad to have you here today, though. Bridgetta, same thing, says, I miss my YouTube family so much. Love you all. And again, Bridgetta, love to hang out with you in other chats. STS is out here sniping, so big thank you to STS out here dropping another one. K Grammer says, much love to the KNW family. Been a member for 5 months. Thanks so much, K Grammer. Let's see. Leo Senpei says, hey, Cat, Chat, and Mods. Great to see you. And with the emojis. I don't know if you're just making a Vivarito reference or if you're letting us know that you're in the bushes today, but we love everyone that comes in and lurks. We know you've got to be productive too. Good to see you, Leo. Mark in Texas says, Paige is seeing August finish. Hello, all. She wants out of here before August. There is no way. I would die if this went to August. Can you imagine? I mean, they start in March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Well, August. They'd be about 5 to 6 months, depending on how long jury selection starts and when the first trial day actually is. Like, I think she would kick everyone out of the courtroom and just lose it. That would be her moment where she just goes postal. So, yeah, I don't know. I hope it doesn't go to August. That would be insane for, 3 defendants. They're supposed to be cutting down this witness list. We'll have to see how that goes. I can't wait. Who are you most looking forward to see who's going to be called or not? For me, I want to see, and I'm sure it won't be limited to one, but I am interested in seeing, I'm assuming we're going to get Vivarito because we've got to talk about Chamel drinks, right? Probably have some Al Hogan. But I'm interested in seeing, who are we going to call? We got to talk about Donovan Thomas, so I feel like we've got to have Thorpe. We've got to have Gaither. What are we going to do about Dennis? So, I don't know. We can't call Dennis. We don't want to call Woody. Like, it's a lot. So I'm very interested in seeing the roster of gang experts and detectives who's going to be on there. So yeah, Mookie says it better not go until summer. If we're going till summer, we've got to do that Florida meetup, guys. We've got to do it. So, but yeah. And then on a fun note here, let me see if I can present this right. Because I put together a little slideshow in Canva. We can finally name the hedgehog. So you guys have been great. You guys sent in your name suggestions. Let me see how I can load this up where we can see it. Present at my own pace. I just want to make sure it's not going to like try to move forward. So I put the name suggestions. Oh, I'm going to be blocking it with the comments. Get rid of the Viverito bush. Hey, they look the same. There's a similarity here. And I'm going to take the banner down because where I happen to place the comments. I tried to put the comments from the name suggestions where StreamYard would pull up the super chats, but I put it too low. Now I pulled the top 25. So based on how you guys liked and upvoted, we're looking at the top 25. We're going to pick a name as a chat first. Again, working in reverse order as far as how it was voted in the YouTube chat. Delphinus, who I don't see here today. That's Carrie H. The names in comments are different than the names that come up in live chat. Suggested Hunkle the Hedgehog, which is very cute. That's derived from Max or Maxine Hunkle DC Comics. So I think that's very cute. We have Yoda Berry from Chloe Albert's Revenge. That's in honor of Legal Vice's beloved pig dog. So Legal Vice's, he had Strawberry and Yoda. So putting the names together there. This was highly upvoted. Happily Angry Lawyer, and this is a two-part. So he suggested Investigator Hamilton, but then says, but Hedgerito is clearly the best answer so far. So we're going to get there. Terry Glass says Woody. You know, hedgehogs are like woodland animals. Black Butterfly with Bush, right? And again, we just had this up here coincidentally, but I do see the resemblance. I do see the resemblance. Then we've got, and I love this for the rhyme, PD Broker 2 says ADA Hinkle instead of Sprinkle. Big Baby Jane says Brillo Spike or Cactus Jack. This is so funny to me with no emojis, nothing. Interested YouTube viewer says Shank, right? So an ode to Rice Street here. And really maybe Shanks because that's a lot of quills, right? So I like this one. That was very creative. Grandina says Henry the Hedgehog. We got the alliteration. Now this is where we're going to get the repeat suggestion. So chat, you guys get to make the ultimate decision. You don't have to go with the crowd, the populace out here from the static comment post, but you're going to see a lot of these suggestions. Angie Lay said gotta be Hedgerico. And this is a great play on the Hedgerito, switching it with the Rico. All About the Shade says Honey Lynn the Hedgehog, including the artist name, because the artist is Lynn Bailey, and my middle name Lynn. So shout out to the Lynns. Two Souls for You says Happy the Hedgehog. Paulette says, I think you should name her Mary. It was Christmas time after all. I put this in here, and it was top rated. It was top rated. Cha Diggy, this wasn't Cha Diggy's official submission, but she said Sir Cat. And I thought it was hilarious that YouTube put the translate to English. They didn't recognize cat as a word here. So, Destined to Be says, I'm not creative, but I like Haddington the Hedgehog. It's a proper name since he's from the UK. Hat because you like hats. Yes, this is a UK hedgehog. Lynn Bailey is a printmaker over in the UK. Guys, if you're ever out of gift ideas, I think stuff like this is great. I love this. I hope the picture on the screen like gives you an idea of the detail of the work, because I can't really like hold it up and show you guys. But this is an artist that's been doing this for years and also has the print side down. So not only is she extremely talented, but she has the production, right, to put it into a gift that you can purchase and give to somebody. So if you ever have someone you don't know what to give them as a gift, stuff like this is so nice. So shout out to Lynn Bailey. Oh, Bailey's, and this is factual lie. This is factual lie. Said Jeff, Sonic, Quilliam, Prickles or Prickles with a different spelling. Edgar Allan Poe is so good. And Quill I am also. Love the play on words here. So factual lie threw in a bunch in the ring there. It's a lot to choose from. Delilah Carbajal also says Jeff. So Legal Vices shout out here. But also YSL related, Sprinkle. Stephanie Slaughter says, I love hedgehogs. I like the names Bailey, Charity, and Noel. And when I read Noel, I got Brian Steele ABC vibes. 420 Palm says, well, I think Rico or maybe Bailey, as in her surname, and Runkle. So if you guys remember the backstory, this was, we donated, I think the final amount was 400? Maybe it was 300. But Ian Runkle of the Bailey, does a charity stream, like a 24-hour charity stream every year to benefit Stollery Children's Hospital, and his community contributes gifts to be auctioned off. So Lynn Bailey donated this to his cause, and then the chat, with the help of his mods, auctions things off. Kurt from Uncivil Law was doing an auctioneer voice as improv. It was really fun. But I was in the chat. I really wanted that hedgehog, and I kept bidding on it. So chat, we have a chat hedgehog, and we donated several $100s to Stollery Children's Hospital, the thanks of you guys. So that's why we're seeing the reference here to Runkle of the Bailey. And then here BMAX says the same thing, Runkle the Hedgehog. Sherry says, I think Hedda the Hedgehog is the perfect name, and there's a good reason why. It's in recognition of the first ever New York murder trial to be televised back in 1988. Now, this was something new to me, so Sherry, thank you for, like, you know, I love, like, trivial food bites here. But you guys have heard me complain that in New York, they're not very transparent. They don't have a lot of cameras for most of their courts. But here, this Hedda the Hedgehog, this was from a New York murder trial in 1988 that was the first to be televised in New York. This is Hedda Nussbaum. She testified against Joel Steinberg in the murder trial of their illegally adopted little daughter, Lisa. So always love to hear stories about transparency in courtrooms. A recent other story, parallel story, the Richard Allen case. You know, he was just convicted. Judge Gull, she initially paraded, she advocated for cameras in courtrooms. But with Richard Allen, she didn't want any cameras, any media. The only time she allowed cameras in the courtroom was a day where she was essentially putting the defense attorneys on blast. She was hearing motions to get them disqualified. And eventually, I believe they were disqualified, and the Court of Appeals said, no, put them back on. That was the only day after she paraded for cameras in courtrooms previously. She didn't want them in the courtroom for this case. The only time she televised a hearing was when it was against the defense attorneys. And I can't help, I try not to judge things too harshly in isolation, but I judged that move pretty harshly. I think that raises my eyebrows. So, let's see. Love Amy E says Hedgerito again. Hedgerito. I'm telling you, it's a popular one. MH Cassidy says Bailey for Runkle of the Bailey. Oh, I think I put this twice. My bad. And then this was the number one upvoted, and this is where everyone else is getting it from. This is where Happily Angry Lawyer says, I have a suggestion, but it's got to be Hedgerito. Cha Diggy. So shout out to Cha Diggy, said Detective Hedgerito. And Cha put a couple comments on this, but this was her first one, and I feel like out of like gut instinct, she just rolled into that comment section and just like off the tongue said Detective Hedgerito. So, you know, that was the top result, plus all of those other mentions gotta be. Leo in the chat says, I'm throwing in a new one, Unfunk. What would Whitaker say? It's past the deadline. Past the deadline. So chat, whatever name I see the most in the chat over the next 60 seconds, you can use all caps to do it, will be the name of our hedgehog. So there we go. And if for some reason there's a improv name that you guys are saying the most, I guess technically that could win. But it's got to be the one we say the most. So let's start a 60-second timer starting now. wonder if I have music. You guys want to play some StreamYard music in the background? Or you know what? Let's do the vote while we play an ABCs of Steel. That's like 2.5 minutes. So we'll vote for 2.5 minutes. Let me play ABCs of Steel. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where it is anymore. There we go.
As in Alicia, and B, Your Honor, as in Barry. C as in Colette.
G as in Goldfetter. K as in Kittens. M as in Magic. P as in Perfect. C as in Colette. U as in Unbelievable. V as in Victory. W as in Wonderful.
O for objection. S for sustain. E for buffering. E for Pepto-Bane. S for slime, my friend, and you as in what you mean. I as in I don't recall. M as in may I sleep. All the ABCs of steel makes me feel so real. Yeah, they keep on spinning round. Never gonna let me down. G for gavel slams down P. T for tell him anything. R for rights we stand. I for infinity. Life's a courtroom dance. Keep your stances strong. With ABCs of steel, you can never go wrong. Oh, the ABCs of steel makes me feel so real. Yeah, they keep on spinning round. Never gonna let me down. Steel makes me feel so real. Yeah, they keep on spinning round. Never gonna let me down. Oh, the ABCs of steel makes me feel so real. Yeah, they keep on spinning round. Never gonna let me down. 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 Never gonna let me down.
All right, we're back. We are back. So shout out to ABCs of Steel. Guys, Hedgehog is the clear, broke ahead early in the race here when the song first started, and it kept going. So the Antonio Hedge is also, and the variations, right? We had Sledgehog, we have Antonio Hedge. These are also very creative. They may have gotten into the race a little bit too late. And with Jim in the chat, you guys, if you missed the last video we did, or I think I mentioned it in a Flesh of the God stream. I don't think it was my own stream. If you missed the news, we've talked about Happily Angry Lawyer, or Jim R, as he's in this chat, and Tiffany Adams, who's the Fit Lawyer ATL. We talked about it. We knew that they were working with Antonio Sledge, aiming to represent him, but they did officially file notice of substitute counsel, right? So they're officially in the door. They're going to be helping Mung Tunk. So if you missed that, I think it was Flesh of the Gods where we talked about that. So, but you guys should always be tuning in over there too, or you wouldn't miss that kind of news. Guys, I do think Hedgehog is the clear winner, but all the other choices, especially these top 25, were really good. And I don't know, maybe for anything that moves forward with Antonio Sledge, Maybe we need a second Hedgehog to name. If you guys want to check out art like this by Lynn Bailey, the artist, this is the link to her Etsy. Or actually, it says Shoptastic. Why does it say that? Is that like the masked URL? Okay, this link looks too long. Okay, for whatever reason, Etsy's giving me a weird link when I try to link to her individual store. So I'm going to link specifically to a hedgehog picture, but you can click out and look through her other products. Does that link work for you guys? Etsy's trying to add all kinds of weird stuff, URL parameters. So, oh my gosh, yes, this is perfect. Especially like we're thinking of Hedgehog as a, you know, we mess up names sometimes. So I think if we go with Hedgehog is like someone mispronouncing it, but it's also still relevant. But we can also have a bunch of AKAs. That would be so fitting. So I think we should do that, you guys. We'll do like 3 or 4 AKAs. We'll have Hedgehog, Detective Hedgehog, as the official government name of our hedgehog here. We can have a bunch of AKAs, whatever you want from this point forward. This is such a good solution, that guy Nick. So we're going to do that. So everybody, warm welcome to Detective Hedgehog, aka whatever you want it to be at any given time. So I love that. And love this too, for Always Forever for Life says, yes, I'm so happy, hope they can help Mungtung. Just a crazy thing to see go down. If you guys want to mark your calendars on February 25th, the Supreme Court of the United States, all the way at the top, is going to be hearing oral arguments in a case where the circuit courts are split like pretty much half and half. And the issue that they're going to hear is, you know, when someone has some type of release, right? Parole, probation, and there's a new offense, right? That new offense is a violation of the terms of their supervised release, right? When there's a new offense and the judge has to consider revocation of, let's say, the probation. When the judge is considering probation revocation, can the judge consider the nature of the new offense, right? So what that would mean is if, you know, let's say I'm out on probation for 5 years and, well, I guess 2 different examples. Let's say a judge is hearing 2 cases and the 2 defendants, they're out on the same terms. Everything in the underlying case, let's say it was the exact same thing. Exact same crime, exact same sentencing conditions, and they both get 5 years probation. No difference here, control level. But they both commit a violation, a new offense, while they're on this probation. And one, it's something petty. One, it's something petty like they shoplifted something for $50. And the other, it's something more egregious, like it was a domestic violence report, right? Now, should the judge who's seeing the probation revocation sentence hearing, should that judge, right? This is not the trial for the new offense. So the judge visiting the issue of the probation violation, should they be able to consider the nature of the new offense in determining the revised sentencing, the revocation? So in other words, is it appropriate or is it not appropriate for them to say, hey, you've been charged with this new offense that's going to be in a separate case, and that's egregious, that's crazy, domestic violence, it's a huge no-no. So we're gonna take back all 5. We're gonna take back all 5 years. Versus for this other person who had the same exact underlying circumstances, because it was only shoplifting, you know, we're only gonna revoke like 90 days. And the Supreme Court's gonna hear this issue because it's not clearly delimited in statute for the relevant section. So I think this is gonna be really, you know, kind of interesting from what we're seeing going on with Mungtung, what we're seeing going on with Yak. You know, and in general, we talk a lot about how probation can be a trap, right? And sometimes a lot depends on what judge you get in front of. So it's an issue like this not being clearly delineated, and even worse, circuits are completely split on this issue. Some say, yep, judge has the discretion, and others say, nope, they shouldn't have the discretion. It can be such a big difference depending on where you are and what judge you're in front of. right? So the Supreme Court they granted writ of certiorari to hear this issue. And the main issue is, do we need to spell this out more clearly? What should actually become the case law? I think it's a really important issue. So again, if you guys are into that sort of thing, that's going to be a Supreme Court argument on February 25th. I have it bookmarked. I plan to watch it, so I'll just go live so we can watch it together if you guys want to tune into that. And then I feel like my StreamYard is frozen, unless you guys have only been saying Hedgerito for the last little bit here. So let me, I don't know, let me switch tabs. There we go. There we go. Now it's suddenly loading in. Let's see. Hedgie Nash, that's so funny. Oh my god, I'm gonna tell him that. Next time I see Seti, you guys say, let him know about the hedgehog that has an AK of Hedgie Nash. Oh man, or maybe Hetty Nash too. Again, Nick, this was a great idea. Bunch of AKAs, perfectly in line. Hey to Peter Ortiz, you missed it. You missed your opportunity to help name the hedgehog, but it is so good to see you. I hope you're doing well. And I know you've been popping into Fort Lauderdale a lot recently, just so you know, it is in the 50s. So if that would change your travel plans, just keep that in mind. Hey to Anita Shea, hey to all of our latecomers here. And let's see. Now, I do want to shout this out. KH says AV is talking about Fani v. Trump. Again, Fani has filed, I'm like hidden back here. Fani has filed her appeal. She's arguing that the Court of Appeals overstepped in disqualifying her from the Trump RICO case. She said that, they were creating new law. Interesting stuff to read through. I don't know I have no guess on what will come of this appeal. I think it's easier for them not to ruffle the lower court's feathers, and I think that's true of appeals in general. So just on that principle, nothing to do with Fani or her arguments. I think unless there's a good reason for them to change what the court below them has done, I don't really see the Court of Appeals decision being overturned just like that. But AV's going to go over this. I don't have a redirect. I can't redirect to her. But just so you guys know out loud, AV is going to be covering this topic. And I'll drop the link in the chat. But as far as where I can actually redirect a stream to, who we can go visit, is anybody else live right now that we can go interrupt? Classy Beats is live, so we can raid Classy Beats, who will be doing, today's Friday, Club Classy tonight, you guys. Let me edit this and we can go raid our guy and our gal, Amy E, over there at Club Classy. Customization. Because initially when I started this stream, I was like, oh, I'll redirect over to Survivor Speaks. Because I thought there would be something longer going on with what she was covering today, but I guess it ended early because she came over here. So there went my plan. There's Classy. Oh, and Nick Starro is doing, I think he's doing a rewind on the CNN defamation case. If you guys have caught any wind of that and you're interested in that, I'll get that link in a second. Classy Beats. Why isn't Classy's link coming up? YouTube's telling me he's live right now. Why can't I redirect to Classy Beats? I've redirected to him before, right? Okay, so I'm gonna drop a link to Classy. And then I'll do the redirect to Nick, because we know Nick is live. So in the chat is a link to Classy Beats, who is live currently, but the option to redirect over to him is grayed out. So can't do that for him, can't do it for AV. But he's covering... Actually, it looks like he's covering testimony in the Jarvis Butts trial, the Nazira Harris case. That's what's on screen right now. And then Nick, we can set up the redirect. That's going to be the CNN defamation case. That's in deliberations, and maybe they have a verdict already, but he's doing a rewatch of the trial testimony. So if you wanted the context of that case, that's what Nick's going to be talking about. And let's see, customization. Let me confirm that I can actually set the redirect instead of just assuming, because I'm like 0 for 2 right now. There we go. It let me do it. So we'll redirect over to Nick. We succeeded. Peter says, love your hat, Kat. And okay, I wore yellow today, and I thought of you when choosing a hat. Because I almost wore the same hat I always wore, my Diane Fossey hat. And it's because it was Diane Fossey's birthday this week. So, you know, she's not alive, but the organization, you know, they celebrate her life. So it was a little bit of I had to make myself wear the yellow hat instead of the hat I usually wear. But I thought of you when I was making that decision. I was like, Peter's going to comment that I'm wearing a different hat today. If you guys are wondering, the Diane Fossey, they do gorilla conservation. They have a great facility. They employ a lot of people that care about the cause. Lots of love for them. So that is, if you were ever curious, this is where the main hat that I wear is from Diane Fossey Foundation. So there you go. There we go. Yeah, me and Classy had a beef. You know what? When I go into Club Classy now, it's so popular. I love you guys for that. I think you guys are a huge part of that. But the slots to like sponsor songs for people are all filled up already by the time I get there, right? So I need to get there early and get some slots. But the last few times I've gone to Club Classy, you guys are out there supporting these music artists. It's awesome. The seats are all gone for their music plays. So I've got an informal beef with Classy over that. So I've got to get some sponsors in. But there's that. And I think this is Mookie's link. Is Mookie live? I just want to see if we've got Nick doing CNN. Classy looks like I'm on his screen, so he's still doing Jarvis. Okay, Mookie's not currently live. Okay. So, but again, thanks for sharing that. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't like shouting at Mookie without context, but there is no context. Mookie is not live. But there's his channel link. Thanks again, Jason, for sharing that. Another creator, you guys know Mookie well if you hang out here, if you hang out with Flesh of the Gods, if you hang out with Survivor Speaks. Never a dull moment with Mookie in the chat. So when you do go live, let us know what you're going to be covering. So that way I have some context to give the viewers here. Let's see. And it's not dyed. It's just when my hair gets really long. If you go back on my channel, you can see, you know, before I started streaming and doing work for like 60 to 80 hours a week, you know, I would spend more time like planning what I wear. But to reduce mental load, I go through the same routine, right? I've got like a set of outfits, especially when I have a work conference that's important. I go through the same cycle of outfits that I know, like, all right, I'm meeting with someone that's like an investor, right? We got to spice it up a little bit. And I think you guys have seen some of those days. Because he's like, you look really nice today. You look like you dressed up. Yeah, I put on a sweater and didn't wear a hat. That's kind of what it amounts to. But it really became something to reduce mental load. And I've worn hats my whole life, but I don't always wear hats. But it really helps to reduce mental load when you don't have to wake up, do your hair, put on makeup. You can get your stream done. You can get your work done. But maybe I'll relax back from that now that we're not streaming 8 hours a day. So there's that. Yeah, and you could see like hairstyles throughout the years. And I feel weird because for a while I had the Cassie haircut. It was like the side shave and the bob. And then you kind of realize why there's a reason Cassie may have had that haircut. And I feel bad. Like I was like, oh, that's very fashionable. I love it. So I don't know if she had it for a certain reason. Now I feel kind of bad about it. But you know, I've had longer hair in previous years of my life. Probably Instagram. I don't use Instagram anymore, but you can find some throwbacks there. I did used to have hair, you guys. I had hair. But I still have some hair sometimes, depending on when it's been the last time since I got a haircut. But oh, and Dolly's doing Judge Fleischer. And so the last few times I've watched Dolly, do a court feed stream with Judge Fleischer. Sometimes he'll also work in some court feed from from Judge Simpson, who I know a lot of you guys like. Here's a preview. Fleischer's well loved.
It goes in one ear, it goes out the other ear.
This is the
because
judge.
when you get out there, we still have issues. So I don't care. I'm giving Bioji a week to do what he can do. If it doesn't work out and it doesn't end up getting dismissed, you must be here in court. If you fail to appear, I'm going to revoke your bond. Do you understand?
I'll just answer. Thank you, Your Honor.
Hold on. Before
Thank you, Your Honor.
I want to give him the date.
Oh, yeah, you did.
So he is spicy. He is spicy. He's funny. He can be heartwarming, right? So he has some of those moments where he gives like warm leniency. He's just a court personality that I think people enjoy watching. Just same thing with Judge Simpson and Dolly. He's off camera right now, but he does some reactions. I did hear Dolly mention on Excited Utterances channel with Potentially Criminal that part of the reasons he's starting to record these court fees is because Fleischer pulled down his YouTube channel, and Potentially Criminal, who's a practicing defense attorney, said, you know, it might be, even though there's not really anything wrong with it, it might be just out of a precaution. Since Judge Fleischer's still making his feed available to the public through, you know, a court cast, a Zoom feed, that maybe Fleischer was taking a precaution to becoming like an internet caricature of some sort. Which when Sean pointed that out, I thought that was pretty respectable. He's still transparent, but he's not making a YouTube channel out of it. So Dolly's been recording the feeds because it's no longer on YouTube. So that was some cool context there. Check that out. Yeah, and Janky Grandpa says Fleischer is refreshing to watch, right? He's not like lazy or just, I don't care about this case, I'm not listening to it. He takes things very seriously. He's very sharp. And there's some entertaining wit in there sometimes, but he's not, I don't think he's overbearing and too harsh either. So it's nice to watch, and I love Dolly's chat. So definitely a good place to hang out. I'm there a lot of days as well. But yeah, and then that guy Nick says he's a good judge, but he treats addiction like a personal problem, and that's a different convo, and jail doesn't fix addiction. So yeah, there's that. So again, we're going to be redirecting over to Nick Starro for the CNN defamation case, not just verdict watch. He's rewinding and watching, getting caught up on the testimony in that case. The jury was at an impasse last night, so, you know, seems like there's some people for, some people against delivering a verdict in either direction. So if you want some clues as to why, watching with Nick would be a good place to be. Again, we've linked to Dolly for Judge Fleischer. Classy's doing the Jarvis Butts preliminary hearing. AV is talking about Fani v. Trump. And did we miss anyone else that's live? I think that's who we went through that's live right now. So. And Jay-Z says, you've seen Judge Stephanie Boyd. I'm not sure, but there was a female judge that Potentially Criminal was mentioning that he said, and I think it might be a Georgia judge, not Fulton County, but somewhere else in Georgia. He said very much a character, very much like aware that YouTube is watching the feed, but he didn't know the name offhand. I wonder if this is the same person. I wonder if this is the same judge that he was referring to. Maybe we can look real quick. And then we'll end and we'll redirect. I need like walk-off music for my own show, you guys. Oh, so CNN was found guilty of defamation. I just refreshed, and Nick's title for his video is CNN found guilty. So they're in the second phase, right? They're determining damages today, right? So there's some testimony from witnesses from both sides to, you know, they caused this much damage. Here's testimony about it. No, they didn't cause this much damage. And then the jury will have to go and deliberate on damages. So 2 phases. So I had that incorrect. I thought Nick was rewinding. Stephanie Boyd Judge. I think I was going to do a preview, but it looks like it's just on a clerk right now. So I don't think we'll get a quick preview.
in the software, and this is audio that I listened to today and initialed and dated for today's date. And
Yeah,
are
this
these
is,
recordings
yeah, you
kept
can
in
see the
normal
flag.
course of
It's
business?
Texas.
Yes.
You guys
when
are
was
good.
this recording made?
And this is the
10/10/22.
judge's YouTube channel you can see here. So there's that in the chat if you want to watch that as well. So again, I'm not sure, but I recognize her. And I think, you know, there's 343 people watching now and she has 40,000 subscribers. So I'm just going to go with she's great to watch. People enjoy watching her courtroom as well. So shout out to the judges that keep it transparent, and a little extra shout out for when it is entertaining and we can learn something from it. Okay, so Jay-Z's helping me whittle it down. Boyd is in Texas, but I may be referring to a Clayton County judge, right? We got to narrow it down and find out who this other one is. Maybe I'll bug Sean. But with that, guys, hope you have something to choose from that's of interest that you guys can watch. Plenty of options there. We will be redirecting over to Big Nick Starro, so make sure you say hey to Big Nick, even if you choose to veer out and go watch a different topic. Hope to run into you guys somewhere else. And again, we'll definitely be together for the next hearing in YSL 2 on February 7th. So see you guys then, and maybe before that. So you guys take care. Bye, guys. And thank you for naming Hedgerito. Thank you, Chad Diggy.